You're listening to School Counseling Simplified, a podcast with easy-to-implement strategies for busy school counselors. Here's your host, Rachel Davis from Bright Futures Counseling.
Exciting news! I'm doing a brand new free live training this Thursday, March 14th. I'm offering 2 times and I cannot wait to see you there. So what are we going to talk about? I'll be sharing all about how you can help students break the stress cycle, the anxiety management tool that you didn't learn in grad school. If you've ever thought, why are my students so anxious? How can I get them to calm down? I'm not a behavior specialist. I wish the teachers didn't think that I have a magic wand. I need more tricks up my sleeve than just deep breathing. And I wish I could help more, but I just don't know how. If you've ever thought any of those things, then you are going to absolutely love this training. I'll be sharing a little known tool to help your students manage extreme emotions and to understand the body-brain connection. You'll walk away with easy to implement strategies that make you feel confident and prepared to help students self-regulate and get ready to learn. Their teachers are saying thank you already. I hope to see you there. Like I said, it's in 2 days. It's on Thursday, March 14th. I'm offering one time at 1 p.m. Eastern and another at 6 p.m. Eastern. So eat your lunch with me and join me for that one during the day, or you can come to the evening one if that works out better. So I cannot wait to see you guys there. Please go to stressfreeschoolcounseling.com/training to save your seat today. Again, this is a free live training I'm doing this Thursday. Everyone who attends will get a PD certificate and a free anxiety curriculum. All right, I hope to see you there. Hey there, thanks for listening to another episode of School Counseling Simplified. This month on the podcast, we are talking all about anxiety. I think most counselors would agree that kids are more anxious now than ever, and so I really want to touch on this topic and to share with you actionable strategies that you can use right away. My desire for this podcast is that you're listening on your drive to work, and then you learn something that you can use with your kiddos that day. So today I have for you 3 grounding strategies that I think you're going to find super helpful. I've actually been trying to use these with my own toddler son who is starting to have little meltdowns and little bouts of anxiety. I also want to say, bear with me, I feel like I'm kind of out of breath. It's kind of a funny story actually, so I'll tell you. We have had some friends visiting and we have a guest room. And our closets are kind of small at our house, so I keep all of my clothes in the guest room, typically. Well, when our friends were here, I didn't want to be going in and out of their room all the time, so I was like, I'm just going to pack myself a suitcase of my clothes for the 3 or 4 days and just put it in my bedroom where I sleep. That way I can have, just my clothes down there and I don't have to go bother them or whatever. Well, we also usually keep our son, he sleeps in a bag and play. We usually keep him in the guest room to kind of keep him separate. But again, they're there, so we moved him into our room. So I have him in my room and the suitcase in my room. Anyways, it was the middle of the night, and he started crying. So I got up to go to him, and I tripped over the suitcase and landed on top of one of our bed bolsters, the 4 things. And oh my gosh, I feel like I got impaled. I think I bruised a rib, but I've been too lazy to go get an x-ray. I don't know. I feel like there's not much I can do for it based on my Google doctoring. So the consequence is I kind of have short breath. So bear with me on that. I thought I'd just share a funny story from my life and my clumsiness, but I'm fine. Moving on, grounding skills. So there's 3 that I want to talk to you today. And it's one of those things, the kid comes in your office and they're in a panic, right? They're having very high anxiety. Maybe there's shortness of breath as well. Maybe they're crying. Maybe they just can't focus. They're spiraling out of control, right? They're not grounded in any sense of the word. And what we can do is we want to capture their attention and help them center themselves. And there's a few different ways we can do this. One thing I like to do first is kind of get them to snap out of it almost. I do this, with students. Sometimes they feel like you try to talk to them, but they are not in any place to reason. They're not operating with their rational brain. They're operating in their fight or flight brain, right? So we need to meet them where they're at. So we need to do something to get their attention. So maybe clap a few times, get them a drink of water, see if they can practice a few breaths. But oftentimes they're not even ready to do the deep breathing. And that's where I find that these grounding skills help kind of snap them out of it first, and then they can get to the deep breathing. So one that I love to use is rainbow grounding. So just ask the student, can you name something that's red? And this kind of catches them off guard. Like I was saying, snaps them out of it. They're like, wait, what? What did she ask me to find something that's red? Just say, name something that's red in the room. Maybe provide a few examples. Then you go to orange. Then you go to yellow. And then green, blue, indigo, and violet, following the colors of the rainbow. Roy G. Biv, you all know it. And they are trying to identify things that are those colors, which helps them to center themselves in the room. Like, oh, I'm here. Okay, I can do this. I can name these. By the time they get through violet, then maybe you can have some deep breathing exercises. Then they calm down. Then you try to talk to them about what's wrong or the source of their anxiety. Then after the grounding exercise and the breathing exercises, then maybe they're ready to be a little more receptive with their rational mind. Another one is 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 grounding. So this one, you tell them to think about a place that they love and a place that they feel safe. This is option 1. So they're in your office in reality, but you're or maybe they're on the playground, or maybe you're meeting them in the hallway, depending on, where they're having their moment. But you tell them to think about a place that they love and feel safe. So maybe they talk about their house. And you say, okay, well now tell me 5 things that you can see if you're at your house. And they'll start naming things. Oh, I can see the table. I can see my mom. I can see the refrigerator. I can see the cat, and I can see a piece of mail. Okay, what are 4 things that you can touch at your house? And then maybe they'll say a pillow, a glass of water, a pencil, I don't know, a stuffed animal, and maybe they're touching the floor. 3 things you can hear. Maybe they hear birds outside. Maybe they hear a TV in the background. Maybe they hear their brothers and sisters playing. And 2 things they can smell. Maybe they smell their mom's perfume, and maybe they smell what they're having for dinner that night. And then 1 thing they can taste. Maybe they can taste their favorite food from home. So having them think of those things, you just heard me trying to think of those things off the top of my head. I'm not in a crisis moment, but when I'm trying to think of them, it takes me a minute, and I'm like really focused on that task, not thinking of anything else, thus grounding. Now, another thing you can do to ground is to have them name where they're at in that moment in present space and time. So, okay, we're on the playground. 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. I prefer to do it in the actual place they are. I find that's a little easier to disrupt the anxiety by thinking like, what are you physically touching right now? But the visualization aspect of their favorite place is a nice component. And it's cool for them to identify a place that they love and feel safe, because perhaps in that moment, they're not feeling safe on the playground. So those are 2 options. The final coping skill regarding grounding is ABC grounding. So this one takes a little longer, but it's really helpful as well. And, maybe longer, it's better. If you're working with a younger student, maybe do the rainbow. But if you're working with an older student, maybe do the ABC one, because it's going to take a little longer and they'll have to think a little more. So, look around the room. We're going to find something that starts with each letter of the alphabet. So starting with A, okay, what do you see? Oh, I see an apple on that poster. B, what do you see? I see a basket. C, what do you see? And so on. And it gets tricky. Some letters, obviously, Z, X. But again, it's just like a snap out of it way to ground them to where they're at. They're out of the spiral in their head, and they're getting grounded. Once you can ground, then you can move on to the breathing exercises. Once you do the breathing exercises, then you can move on to the rational conversation. I know so often we try to come in and we're trying to help as counselors, and we're like, okay, tell me what happened. Okay, you're having your size of the problem isn't matching your reaction, and this is like a really big response, which is true, and size of the problem is an excellent lesson to teach, but in that moment to that child, it feels like a really big problem. So until we can get them to their rational mind, we need to first have them at ground. A little bonus strategy for you is you can do a walk. So walking around and feeling their feet touch the physical ground. You could even have them take off their shoes if you wanted to, or go outside. That's kind of a cool way to physically ground down into the earth and to really center themselves in space and time. I hope you found this helpful. Another thing you can do, this is something you would do as more of a proactive, preventative approach, but you can explain the brain to the kids. A lot of times we think it's too difficult, or maybe we didn't learn it till our 20s, but you can explain to them what's happening in their brain, explain the prefrontal cortex, explain the amygdala, and say, look, of course you're not able to think rationally because you're operating in this responsive state. The limbic brain, you can go as deep as you want or make it as simple as you want. For kids, sometimes you could just call it the thinking brain and the worry brain. But by describing the different areas of the brain, it really helps them feel like there's nothing wrong with them. It's kind of almost externalizing the problem. It's normalizing it. Everyone has a brain. Everyone does this. Just to kind of help them learn more about the why behind their anxiety. Again, this is definitely something you don't want to teach in the moment, but this is a preventative thing you could teach with these students who tend to have, anxious episodes or anxiety attacks. Talk about this with them, and then you could debrief with them as well after they calm down. Maybe have a meeting and say, okay, so, what happened with your worry brain, or how did that affect your thinking brain? Anytime we can get the kids more involved in the neuroscience of it, the better, right? Because then they can really understand the why behind everything. Okay, guys, I hope you found this super helpful. I have some anxiety activities, including a what's happening in my brain poster that I think your kids will find super helpful. And I will link to that in the show notes. So you guys, you know what? I think I'll just make that a freebie. Yeah, I'll make that what's happening in my brain poster a freebie so you can check it out and share it with your kiddos. So we'll do a link to that in the show notes. Also, don't forget, in 2 days, I really hope I'll see you at my training. So it's on the same topic. I'm all about anxiety right now, and I really want to talk to you guys about how you can help your students break the stress cycle. This is the anxiety management tool that you didn't learn in grad school. I learned this tool a few years ago and just have found it so helpful and so insightful. It's also talking about the brain-body connection and the neuroscience piece. I think you'll find it super helpful. And again, you will walk away with actionable strategies that you can use with your students. That is on March 14th at 1 p.m. and I have a time at 6 p.m. So you can do lunchtime if you're at school and can kind of get away for a minute, or if you're virtual, or you can do dinner time. But I know sometimes with kiddos, the evenings are hard. So pick whichever time works for you. Obviously, I've got food on the brain, lunchtime and dinner time. But please join me. I hope you'll be there. It's a free training. It's going to be live. We'll have a Q&A. Super fun. Everyone who attends will get a PD certificate and a free anxiety curriculum that has a lot of those strategies that I talked about in there, and tips on how to do them. So if you like today's episode, you're going to love this training. Go to stressfreeschoolcounseling.com/training to save your seat. Now, you may be thinking, wait, is this the same thing as the mindfulness coffee thing? And no, later this month, I'll be doing a coffee with the counselor training on mindfulness, but that is separate from this training. So this training is this week, and let's focus on that one first, and then I'll hope you join me at the coffee with the counselor later this month too. So like I said, this month is just all about anxiety and mindfulness and stress, and this time of year can be very overwhelming for adults as well as children, and I think you're really going to love this training. So again, stressfreeschoolcounseling.com/training. Okay, guys, I'll talk to you next week. Thanks.
Thanks for listening to School Counseling Simplified. You can find the links from today's episode in the show notes. If you'd like to connect with Rachel, she's on Instagram and Teachers Pay Teachers at Bright Futures Counseling. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any episodes of School Counseling Simplified. Talk to you next week.